Guys, welcome back to my math YouTube channel. In this video, I want to talk about two important concepts related to application of right triangles, or you can also think of solving for a right triangle. Guys, these two concepts are called angle of elevation and angle of depression. So what is an angle of elevation and what is an angle of depression? Those are the two things that we're going to define here. They are pretty simple. And once we have a clear understanding about both of these, then we will be able to solve many application problems based on angle of elevation and angle of depression. Okay, so guys, for angle of elevation, we got to think in terms of like looking above the horizontal, and for depression it is more like looking downwards. Okay, so for example, let us say there is a building. This is a building, and you can think of anything up in the air, and let us say you are right here, somebody is right here, or you are right here looking directly. You could be looking anywhere in the building, but let us say if you are looking at the top of the building, and let us say this is the top of the building, and let us say this is the building, and if you are looking at the top of the building, then we can draw an imaginary line of sight from the horizontal, wherever you are looking from, to the top of the building. And because we are looking at the top of the building, that's why we are drawing this line from directly from your eye to the top of that building. Guys, if one is looking right here, then we can draw a different line of sight from here all the way to the place, or to the part of the building where we are looking at. Okay, so here it is like top of a building. It could be an aeroplane, it could be anything above the horizontal. Okay, so guys, this is the line of sight, and then if I draw a horizontal line here to this building, so this becomes like what we are trying to create here is a right triangle, because we can only use these trig expressions or trig functions or trig ratios only for right angle triangle. So we're basically trying to create a right angle triangle given any situation here. So guys, this angle right here, that the line of sight, so this is line of sight, that the line of sight makes with the horizontal, and the horizontal here is below the line of sight. So this is called the angle of elevation. The angle that the line of sight makes with the horizontal below it. So it is below it, right? We can obviously see that this is the line of sight and horizontal line is below it. So that is called the angle of elevation. Okay. Similarly, we have angle of depression. So for example, now let us say somebody is standing, or you are standing on top of the building, and now you are looking somewhere down, right? Let us say you are looking somewhere right here. Guys, you could be looking somewhere up here, anywhere, it does not matter. But what really matters here is when we talk about the depression, you are basically looking downwards. So from here, if you are looking directly at this, then again you can think of a line of a sight, an imaginary line from the observer's eye onto that particular point or particular thing that you are looking at. Okay, so this is going to be that line of sight. So if this is the line of sight, then again the definition, the key thing here is that both these angles are always kind of measured with respect to the horizontal, not the vertical, and that is a mistake that I see sometimes students make. So please make sure that we get that definition clear and straight, that the angle of elevation or depression is always that angle between the line of sight, of course that is an imaginary line of sight, and the horizontal. So in this case, we got to draw an imaginary horizontal. We can think of this as a horizontal line here, and the angle of depression is going to be this angle. Guys, keep in mind, this is my line of sight, this is line of sight, and this is the other one is my horizontal line. Horizontal line. So this is going to be called as my angle of depression. So we are not going to call this angle as angle of depression. So this would be the angle that this line of sight makes with respect to the vertical, right? Because we can think of this as like a vertical line. Okay, if we draw a line here instead of a building, that is like a vertical line. But the definition for these angles is that they are with respect to the horizontal. Same thing, guys, right here. This is the line of sight, and the angle of elevation is the angle that this line makes with respect to the horizontal. Because you can also think of another line here, and I can draw it like a vertical line here, which is kind of parallel to this building. But this angle, guys, we're not going to call that as an angle of elevation. Okay, so please be careful when you are actually using these things for solving actual problems. It is always with respect to the horizontal. Now there's another key thing, very good thing about these two angles, and we can easily see that by doing some construction. So guys, most of the problems that deal with angle of elevation, the setup is pretty similar to this. When we are working with the angle of depression, guys, here's the thing. When we're working with the angle of elevation, we can easily create, most of the times it is easy for us to create a right triangle, and one has to create a right triangle before one starts using any of the trig ratios or trig functions. But guys, if I look at this guy right here, and this is my angle of interest or angle of depression, which will be considered as the reference angle. Guys, then if I have to do something with this angle, then I have to do an extra construction piece from here so that it becomes a right triangle, right? Yes, we can do that, but there's another way of actually dealing with this angle. Guys, what we can do here is, we can actually, to make it easier for us to do the calculation, what we like to do is we like to draw a line parallel to this horizontal line, so which is basically like on this ground. So this is a horizontal line. So these two horizontal lines are basically just parallel to each other. And now this, you can think of this as a transverse which crosses two parallel lines. And we know when we have two parallel lines crossed by a transverse, then this angle is going to be equal to this angle right here, because they're alternate interior angles and they're supposed to be same in this scenario, in this case, right? So this angle is same as this angle right here. So if this is theta, then this is obviously also going to be called as theta. But keep in mind, if you think of this angle now, and so you can, like, first when we were thinking about this angle of depression, then somebody was right here and somebody was looking directly down right here. But now let us exchange those positions. Now if you are here and you are looking up here, what is this angle right here? This angle is nothing but the angle of elevation, because you are looking up, right? And this is your line of sight, and this is the horizontal. This is exactly what we had here, but in a slightly different way. So guys, what does that mean? That means the angle of elevation, angle of depression, is always equal to the angle of elevation. So given a problem with angle of elevation, it is very easy to kind of draw the right triangle and then do the math, use the trig ratios and functions, and we will see that in the examples. But guys, if we are given angle of depression scenario, then it is easier, or it makes sense for us to first kind of convert it into an angle of elevation sort of problem. Then you're just looking at this right triangle, and in this right triangle, this angle theta is an angle of elevation, but it is basically same as the angle of depression. Guys, it is going to make more sense when we actually start doing some actual problems, application problems. But what I'm trying to say here basically about the angle of depression piece here is that angle of depression is equal to the angle of elevation. So given a problem or a scenario with angle of depression, we can start by drawing this angle of depression, but then we can quickly see that this is same as the angle of elevation. So instead of focusing on this part, we are just going to focus on this part right here, the right triangle right here. So the conclusion here is that the angle of elevation is same as the angle of depression, and that is going to help us when we start solving application problems. So guys, keep these things in mind, and always keep in mind that the angles are always with respect to horizontal, not the vertical, always with respect to the horizontal. So it's not too complicated. You have to draw, or you have to think about that imaginary line of sight, and then you draw a horizontal for your reference, and the angle that the line of sight makes with the horizontal is either going to be called as angle of elevation if you are looking upwards, or angle of depression if you are looking downwards. Okay, so guys, this is the basic idea about these two concepts. In my next video, we are going to start actually solving application problems. Guys, there are so many different types. I will try to do as many as we can. Okay,